And just like a soldier, I keep on moving forward, always getting closer, I'm marching till it's over. And just like a soldier, I keep on moving forward.
Hello and welcome back to MangaMuse, guys. This is the fourth part of What If Naruto Enters Bluelock. Make sure to like, share, subscribe and also press the bell icon so that you never miss a great update. Also make sure to check out the wonderful author SpellRGN on FANFICTIONnet. Well, let's continue with the story now.
The whistle blew, and the match was officially underway. Japan versus Spain. Spain's players, dressed in their crimson-red kits, moved with complete control, their passes crisp, their positioning perfect. Japan, in their navy blue, already looked disorganized, their press weak, their attacks hesitant. John Parker, international commentator, and we're off. Spain, as expected, controlling possession early on. This is going to be a massive test for Japan. Goro Takemura, Japanese commentator, Spain's midfield trio is world-class. If Japan can't get close to them, this game might be over before it begins. Spain passed the ball around with ease, their classic tiki-taka style on full display. 4 passes, 6 passes, 10 passes. Japan hadn't even touched the ball yet. At the 4th minute, the first real danger came. A long crossfield switch from Spain's right back found their left winger, who killed the ball instantly with a perfect first touch. The defender marking him was too slow to react. Naruto watched from the bench, arms folded. That's too easy. Sae nodded slightly, but his eyes weren't on the winger. His eyes were on Leonardo Luna. As the Spanish winger drove forward, Luna adjusted his run, not rushing in, but fading away from his marker, creating space without even touching the ball. Naruto's emperor's eye flickered to life as he noticed the same thing. He's letting the play come to him. The winger cut inside and played a low-driven cross to the penalty spot. Sitting on the end of it was Leonardo Luna. The Japanese center-backs panicked, shifting toward Luna too late. One touch, Luna received the pass, his movement perfect, his back slightly turned to goal. A quick pivot, as he turned his body smoothly, his left foot already striking the ball before Japan's defenders even reacted. The shot was low and fast, heading toward the bottom left corner. For a moment, it looked like Japan was already down 1-0. But at the last second, the goalkeeper dove, just barely pushing it wide. The stadium roared in relief from the Japan supporters. Naruto leaned forward. That was clinical. He didn't waste a single second. Sae exhaled through his nose. It's not just that. Look at him. Naruto's gaze shifted back to Luna, who simply adjusted his jersey and walked back without a single reaction. He didn't seem frustrated. He didn't seem surprised that his shot was saved. It was like he expected it. Sae leaned back. Luna isn't here to play around. He's just testing Japan's limits. Naruto smirked. Good, let's see how long they last. The next 10 minutes, it was pure suffering for Japan. Spain toyed with them, moving the ball around effortlessly. At the 15-minute mark, Japan finally won the ball back, only for their forward to lose possession within 3 seconds. Spain regained the ball, and within 2 passes, they were back in Japan's box. John Parker, this is ruthless. Japan simply cannot get a foothold in this game. Goro Takemura, Spain's system is exposing all of Japan's weaknesses. They're being pressed into oblivion. Naruto clicked his tongue. This is embarrassing. Sae didn't respond. He was still watching Luna. At the 18th minute, a through ball split Japan's midfield apart, a perfectly weighted pass that carved through their defensive line. The moment the ball was played, Luna sprinted. His acceleration was explosive, his movement so natural, it was like he was simply gliding past defenders. Naruto's eyes widened slightly, he's fast. The Japanese defender tried to track him, but Luna angled his run perfectly, cutting inside the box before unleashing a devastating first-time shot. This time, the goalkeeper had no chance, as the net rippled violently. Goal! Spain 1-0 Japan. The stadium erupted, Spanish fans roaring as Luna calmly jogged toward the corner flag, raising one finger in the air. John Parker, Luna scores. And just like that, Spain takes the lead. You just can't stop this guy. Goro Takemura, it was bound to happen. Japan simply can't handle Spain's movement. And Luna? He's a different level. On the field, Japan's defenders looked shaken, their shoulders slumped. Meanwhile, on the bench, Naruto's grin widened. That's what I wanted to see. Sae glanced at him. You're enjoying this? Naruto leaned forward, his hands clasped together. I'm just making sure I know exactly what I need to do when I get on that pitch. Sae stared at him for a second before letting out a small chuckle. You're insane, Naruto. Naruto's left eye glowed faintly, the Emperor's eye awakening. No. He grinned. I'm just getting ready to take him down. Spain led 1-0, completely dominating the game. Their passing was like a symphony, fluid, precise, beautiful. Japan, they were struggling to keep up, unable to hold possession for more than a few seconds. Spain controlled the ball in midfield, moving it from left to right, dragging Japan's players out of position like chess pieces. Luna wasn't even running, he was walking, watching, waiting for his moment. He glanced toward Japan's bench, his sharp green eyes flickering to Naruto. Luna knew all the hype, the rumors about Naruto Uzumaki. The so-called emperor. Yet, where was he? Still benched, like a forgotten piece of the puzzle. Luna smirked, shaking his head slightly. How disappointing. Then, his focus returned, it was time to show everyone the difference. At the Uzumaki household, the tension was thick. Kushina sat on the couch, her arms crossed tightly, foot tapping impatiently against the floor. Minato sat beside her, calm on the surface, but his eyes were locked onto the screen. Why the hell isn't he playing yet? Kushina burst out, gripping her hands into fists. This is ridiculous. They're getting destroyed, and the coach still won't put him in? Minato let out a slow breath. They're waiting for halftime. But... Kushina turned to him, her red hair practically standing on edge. But what? Minato's jaw tightened. By halftime, the game might already be over. Kushina's fists clenched. If they don't send him in soon, I swear I'm flying to Russia myself. The TV commentators weren't any kinder. John Parker, we're approaching the 30th minute, and Japan has yet to register a single shot on target. This is getting ugly. Goro Takemura, the fans back home must be furious. The coach made a decision to trust the senior players, but right now, that decision is looking like a disaster. John Parker, and remember, Japan still has Naruto Uzumaki and Sae Itoshi waiting on the bench. You have to wonder, how long will the coach wait before making a change? In the media section, Inori was gripping her notepad tightly, her jaw clenched. Her camera had captured every moment of Japan's suffering, but it wasn't what she wanted to see. She wanted to see Naruto on the pitch. Her fingers tapped against the table, impatient. Come on, put him in already, she muttered under her breath. One of the reporters beside her chuckled. You sound more like a fan than a journalist. Inori turned to him, her eyes sharp. I'm here to report on football, not a disaster. And right now, that's what this match is for Japan. A disaster. She looked back at Naruto, still sitting there, still waiting. The Emperor in chains. Back to the match, Luna raised his right hand, signaling to the midfield as the pass came. A long, floating ball from Spain's deep-lying playmaker soared through the air, heading toward Luna at 40 yards out. It was a high, difficult ball, one that most strikers would struggle to control. The moment it arrived, he chested it down perfectly, the ball dropping just within his strike zone. With a clean, devastating strike, Luna swung his left foot, the ball rocketing through the air like a cannonball. It spun violently, as it dipped and crashed against the crossbar, bouncing into the net. The stadium erupted. Goal! Spain 2-0 Japan. Luna stood still for a moment, his eyes scanning the crowd as the Spanish fans went insane. Then, slowly, deliberately, he pointed to the badge on his chest, sending a single message for everyone in the area. I am the king here. John Parker, oh my god. Luna with a thunderbolt from 40 yards out. That's unstoppable. Goro Takemura, a goal worthy of the World Cup. A moment of pure class from Spain's golden striker. John Parker, and look at that celebration. Luna is showing everyone exactly who he is. The number 9 of Spain, what a player. As the Spanish players rushed to celebrate with Luna, the camera cut to the Japan bench. Naruto leaned forward, his hands clasped together. His eyes gleamed with something new. Not frustration. Not anger. But excitement. Beside him, Sae clicked his tongue. That's a proper striker's goal. Naruto smirked. Yeah. That was clean. Sae turned slightly. You still think you can take his spot at Real? Naruto's grin widened. I don't think. He stood up slightly, adjusting his shirt. I know. The game continued as Spain dictated the game with ruthless precision. Every pass, every movement, every touch, it all flowed like a masterpiece. Japan, on the other hand, looked like they were drowning. Naruto remained seated on the bench, his arms folded, watching as his teammates desperately tried to hold their shape. Sae sat beside him, silent, his eyes glued to the field. Neither of them had spoken for the last 5 minutes. Because neither of them needed to. Japan won a rare turnover in midfield. Their defensive midfielder intercepted a lazy pass and quickly fed the ball forward. For the first time in the match, Japan had a chance to break. The left winger sprinted down the touchline, the ball at his feet, his marker struggling to keep up. The crowd, desperate for something, anything to cheer for, roared in anticipation. Naruto leaned forward slightly, eyes sharp. Come on, make something happen. The winger reached the final third and spotted the striker making a run into the box. He swung in a cross, aiming for the near post. The ball curled in beautifully. But just before it could reach its target, a Spanish center-back leaped into the air, heading it away with authority. The counter was dead before it even started. Naruto exhaled, shaking his head. They never had control, Sae muttered. They got desperate and crossed too early. Naruto gritted his teeth. It's like watching a bunch of kids trying to fight adults. Sae didn't respond, but his expression said it all. Spain slowed the tempo, passing the ball between their midfielders, waiting for Japan to make a mistake. And eventually, Japan did. A misplaced pass. A poor touch. A single mistake was all it took. The Spanish midfielder pounced, flicking the ball forward in one motion. Luna had already started his run. He cut inside, accelerating past the last defender, his body perfectly balanced. The through ball reached him in stride, his left foot cushioning it smoothly. Naruto's Emperor's eye flickered to life as he watched Luna's movement. He's already shaping his shot. Before the goalkeeper could even react, Luna struck. A first-time finish, crisp and effortless, curling past the keeper into the far corner. Goal! Spain 3-0 Japan. Luna turned, arms spread wide, soaking in the admiration. His teammates rushed toward him, but he barely acknowledged them. Instead, he calmly removed his jersey, turning it around before holding it up for the world to see. Luna number 9. The stadium cameras zoomed in, broadcasting the image across the globe. This is my world. John Parker, Luna scores again. And what a finish. He's completely dismantling Japan on his own. Goro Takemura, this is humiliating. Japan is falling apart. The defense can't handle Luna, and the attack can't even get past Spain's midfield. John Parker, and look at that celebration. Luna is making a statement. He's showing the world why he's the next great striker of Spain. Goro Takemura sighed. The only question now is how many more will Spain score before this is over? Kushina stood up so fast that her chair nearly toppled over. This is a joke, she shouted, her hands clenched into fists. Minato, still seated, let out a slow exhale, rubbing his temple. His usual calm demeanor was strained. The commentators' voices filled the living room, their words echoing the frustration felt across Japan. Kushina turned to her husband, fury in her eyes. How much longer is that idiot coach going to wait? Minato met her gaze, his voice even. They said half-time. Kushina scoffed. At this rate, we'll be down 5 goals by half-time. Their TV screen cut to the Japan bench, showing Naruto and SAE watching the game without a hint of panic. Minato noticed. They're not worried, he said. Look at them. Kushina turned back to the screen, her anger giving way to curiosity. Naruto sat with his elbows on his knees, watching the field like a hunter studying prey. And beside him, SAE? SAE was the same. Unmoved. Calculating. Kushina crossed her arms. They know something we don't. Back in the media section, Inori leaned forward, gripping her pen so tightly her knuckles turned white. She had been watching Naruto all game. Waiting. Hoping. But nothing. He hadn't even warmed up yet. This is so stupid, she muttered. A reporter beside her chuckled. They're saving him for the second half. Inori shot him a glare. They won't have a second half if they wait too long. Her eyes flickered back to Naruto. He wasn't worried. He wasn't impatient. He was ready. And the moment he got on that pitch, everything would change. In the 44th minute, Spain kept possession, passing with ease, waiting for the clock to wind down. Luna drifted wide, receiving the ball near the sideline, but instead of pushing forward, he stopped. Naruto's eyes narrowed. What's he doing? Luna placed his boot on top of the ball, his gaze lifting, straight toward the Japan bench. Straight toward Naruto. As their eyes locked, a silent message between them. Are you watching? Naruto smirked slightly, leaning back. Yeah. I'm watching. Luna's smirk matched his. Then, with a casual flick of his foot, he sent the ball rolling backward to his midfield, letting time expire. The whistle blew, half-time. Japan's players trudged toward the tunnel, their heads down, their spirits shattered. As Spain's players walked like kings. Leonardo Luna disappeared down the tunnel, but not before giving one last glance at Naruto. Naruto stood, stretching his arms above his head. Guess it's time, he muttered. SAE smirked, rolling his shoulders. Took long enough. The cameras caught the exact moment they stepped toward the tunnel. The moment Japan's only chance at survival began. Because after halftime, the Emperor would finally take the field. The atmosphere inside the Japan national team locker room was suffocating. Players sat with their heads down, their expressions blank. The coaching staff paced nervously, throwing out strategies that no one had the energy to absorb. The scoreboard outside read Spain 3-0 Japan, but it might as well have been 10-0. Naruto stood near the doorway, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. SAE sat on the bench beside him, his left foot tapping against the floor impatiently. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. The smell of sweat and grass filled the air. Some players chugged water bottles without saying a word. Others kept their hands buried in their hair, replaying every mistake in their minds. The locker room was silent except for the faint echoes of Spanish fans celebrating just outside. Naruto tilted his head slightly, listening to the muffled roar of the stadium. He wasn't frustrated. He wasn't angry. If anything, he was excited. He glanced down at his hands, slowly clenching and unclenching his fists. His body was loose, perfectly warmed up despite not having played a single minute. His mind was clear. The only thing missing was the opportunity. And it was coming. The head coach stood in front of the team, his jaw tight, his clipboard trembling slightly in his grip. He had held off as long as he could, trusting the senior players, believing in the experience of his squad. But after 45 minutes of complete humiliation, he had no choice. He turned toward Naruto and SAE, his eyes heavy with unspoken frustration. You two are going in. A few of the senior players turned their heads, some frowning, others nodding in silent agreement. The coach ran a hand down his face, exhaling sharply before continuing. "SAE, you're taking control of the midfield. Dictate the game, slow Spain down, create something." SAE didn't react immediately. He finished tying the laces of his boots before standing up. His movements were fluid, controlled, but Naruto could feel the tension in his posture. Finally, SAE muttered under his breath. The coach then turned toward Naruto, his eyes scanning him carefully. He had heard the rumors, the stories of his performances in Europe, the growing legend surrounding his name. But this was different. This was the World Cup. "Uzumaki," the coach said, his voice firmer now. "You're leading the attack." Naruto pushed off the wall, rolling his shoulders as he took a step forward. "Yeah," he replied, his voice casual, but there was an edge behind it. The coach hesitated. He still wasn't sure. But he didn't have another option. "I need you to score," he said finally. Naruto smirked, reaching down to adjust his socks. "That's all?" Naruto walked over to the bench where his jersey hung, grabbing it and slipping it over his shoulders. The fabric was damp with sweat from earlier warm-ups, but he barely noticed. His focus was elsewhere. As he pulled the jersey down, as his eyes was scanning the tactics board on the wall. Spain's formation. The weaknesses. The paths that weren't visible to normal players. He could see it. SAE stood beside him, adjusting his shin guards before straightening up. "Don't let me down," he muttered, his voice just loud enough for Naruto to hear. Naruto grinned. "You better make sure those passes reach me." SAE didn't smirk back. He simply gave a slight nod. "They will." Naruto turned toward the exit, flexing his fingers before balling them into fists. He could hear the stadium buzzing, feel the weight of the moment pressing down on his shoulders. But there was no fear. No hesitation. It was time. The locker room door opened, and the bright lights of the stadium poured in. The second half was about to start. As Naruto and SAE stepped out into the tunnel, the rest of the team followed behind them, but something felt different. The energy in the air had shifted. The weight of failure from the first half still hung over everyone, but now there was something else. Something new. Hope. Naruto cracked his neck as he walked toward the touchline, his cleats tapping against the hard concrete before hitting the soft grass. The roar of the crowd swelled, fans noticing the change. The Japanese supporters, who had been eerily silent all game, suddenly found their voices again. The commentators reacted instantly. "John Parker, wait a second, look at the sideline. Japan is making substitutions. Goro Takemura, here it is. Finally. Uzumaki, Naruto and Itoshire SAE are stepping onto the pitch." The camera zoomed in on the two players as they reached the technical area. SAE, cold and focused, barely reacting to the noise. Naruto, rolling his shoulders, grinning like he had just been given a gift. "John Parker, this is the moment we've been waiting for." Japan's two young stars, benched for the first half, finally stepping in when their team is down 3-0. But the question remains, is it already too late? Goro Takemura exhaled sharply, shaking his head. If Japan has any chance left, it's on those two shoulders. Across the field, Leonardo Luna stood near the center circle, adjusting his armband. Spain was completely comfortable with their lead. They had controlled the game from the first minute, dictated every move, and left Japan choking on their own mistakes. But then, as Luna glanced toward the sideline, he saw them. Naruto, SAE. For the first time, Luna's expression changed. His relaxed posture straightened slightly, his green eyes narrowing as he studied Naruto stepping onto the field. It wasn't surprise. It wasn't fear. It was curiosity. A test. "Show me something." Naruto bounced on his heels, shaking out his legs as he walked onto the pitch. The referee confirmed the changes, and the stadium announcer's voice echoed across the arena. Substitution for Japan, entering the match number 10, Itoshire SAE. And number 7 Uzumaki Naruto. The Japanese fans erupted, it was the loudest they had been all game. Naruto grinned, tilting his head slightly toward the Spanish players who were watching him carefully. He could feel their eyes on him. Good. They should be watching. Because from this moment forward, everything was about to change. Back at the Uzumaki house, Kushina stood in front of the TV, arms crossed, foot tapping impatiently against the wooden floor. She had been furious during the first half, her frustration growing with every failed pass, every lost duel, every goal conceded. As the camera zoomed in on the sideline, capturing the exact moment Naruto Uzumaki stepped onto the field, Kushina's breath caught in her throat. There he was, standing under the bright lights of the World Cup. His expression? Completely relaxed. His body language? Loose, fluid, ready to destroy everything in front of him. Finally, she muttered. Minato exhaled slowly, his lips curling into a small, proud smile. Now, he said, leaning forward slightly. Let's see what he does. Inori gripped her notebook tightly. She had been silent for most of the first half, watching Japan get dismantled. It was painful to report on. She had wanted to scream at the coach, at the players, at anyone who could have made the decision to bring Naruto in earlier. Her fingers trembled slightly as she lifted her phone, opening her live feed for her football news account, Funeral Parlor. The message she typed was simple. The Emperor has entered the game. Get ready. She hit send. And then, she lifted her camera, zooming in on Naruto as he took his position for kick-off. And in that moment, she knew, something big was about to happen. The stadium was electric. The second half was moments away from starting, but the shift in atmosphere was impossible to ignore. The Japanese fans, silent for most of the first half, had come alive, chanting, and waving their flags with renewed energy. Even the Spanish supporters, dominant in numbers and confidence, watched with curiosity. On the field, the Japanese players positioned themselves for kick-off, but there was a difference now. Naruto and Sae stood at the center circle, their presence alone making it feel like the game had just begun. The Spanish players were watching them carefully. Especially one. Leonardo Luna. The scion of Real stood near his teammates, his green eyes locked onto Naruto. He wasn't smiling anymore. This time, there was acknowledgement. John Parker, here we go, the second half is about to begin. And all eyes are on Japan's new entries, Naruto Uzumaki and Itoshire Sae. Goro Takemura, this is what the fans have been waiting for. Japan was completely dominated in the first half, but now they bring in their two biggest weapons. The question is, can they turn this around? John Parker, let's not forget Spain still has complete control. They have the lead, the possession, and Luna, who has already scored 3 times. Goro Takemura, true, but Uzumaki and Itoshire are different. These aren't just talented youngsters, they are players who can shift the balance of a game. Let's see if they can prove it. Sae adjusted his socks, rolling his shoulders before looking at Naruto. You ready? He asked. Naruto smirked, lightly tapping the ball under his foot. I've been ready. Sae nodded, his expression unreadable. Spain's midfield trio stood just a few meters away, their defensive structure intact. They weren't going to make this easy. Naruto could feel the weight of the moment, but instead of pressure he felt excitement. This was where he belonged. On the biggest stage. Against the best players in the world. The referee raised his hand. A sharp blast of the whistle echoed through the stadium. Kick off. Naruto nudged the ball forward with his right foot, and in an instant, Japan's second half had begun. Sae immediately dropped deeper, receiving the ball from the center back. Spain pressed high, just like before, their midfield moving aggressively to cut off Japan's options. But Sae wasn't like Japan's first-half midfielders. With a single touch, he chipped the ball over the first pressing player, bypassing the initial pressure instantly. Naruto was already moving. He saw the golden light in his vision, a pocket of space forming between the Spanish defensive line. Sae noticed it too. Without hesitation, he sent a lob pass over the midfield, the ball spinning perfectly in the air. Naruto exploded forward, his acceleration sharp, reaching the ball before the Spanish defender could react. His first touch was clean. The crowd gasped. Japan had never moved like this before. But just as Naruto prepared to drive toward the box, a Spanish defender lunged forward, body angled to block his run. Naruto's Emperor's eye locked onto him instantly. He saw the tension in the defender's legs, the way his center of gravity was leaning too far forward. A grin spread across Naruto's face. He's too aggressive. Too impatient. With a flick of his foot, Naruto performed rapid stepovers, the movement so sharp and quick that the defender reacted too late. The defender's footing gave out. His body collapsed to the ground, completely fooled. Naruto moved past him effortlessly, driving toward the box. The stadium erupted. John Parker, oh my. Uzumaki just destroyed that defender. What a move. Goro Takemura, that was a perfect stepovers. And did you see that? He waited for the defender to overcommit before breaking his ankles. John Parker, we're only 1 minute into the second half and Uzumaki has already left a defender on the floor. Japan suddenly looks alive. Naruto's move had forced Spain's defense to shift. The right back closed in quickly, not giving him room to advance further. Naruto knew he couldn't take on the entire defense alone, not yet. So, with a quick glance, he sent a trivela pass backward, curling the ball toward Sae at the top of the box. Sae let the ball run past him, smoothly turning his body with a Marseille turn to avoid his marker. The crowd roared again. Japan's rhythm had changed. This wasn't desperation. This was calculated football. Spain refused to let Japan dictate the pace. Their defensive midfielder surged forward, attempting to close down Sae's space. Sae saw it coming. With a sharp touch, he feinted left, then immediately executed a double touch to break free. Naruto was already moving, as the golden path appeared again. Sae, recognizing the angle, sent a lob pass over the last defender, one of his signature impossible-to-block passes. Naruto accelerated, chesting the ball down inside the box. One-on-one with the keeper, as he rushed out, his arms spreading wide. The golden light in the top right corner of the goal. Without hesitation, he swung his left foot. A golden finesse shot curled with precision. The ball spun beautifully. The goalkeeper stretched out his hand ready to save, but the bounced off the outside of the post and skidded out for a goal kick. A collective gasp rippled through the stadium. Naruto Uzumaki had missed. For a moment, there was silence, a stunned pause as everyone processed what had just happened. Naruto stood just outside the penalty box, eyes locked on the goal, expression unreadable. He exhaled slowly before jogging back into position. As Sae walked up beside him, his expression unreadable. That should have gone in. Naruto rolled his shoulders, shaking out his hands. I know, but it's fine, I understand now. Spain's goalkeeper placed the ball down for a goal kick. A quick short pass to their center-back. The center-back immediately rolled it to their deep-lying midfielder. Spain's possession-based playstyle kicked in immediately, moving the ball between the lines smoothly. Their players never panicked, never forced anything. Even under pressure, they knew their game plan: pass, move, pass again. Naruto and Sae didn't press too aggressively. They knew what Spain wanted to do. And just as expected, the ball found its way to the heart of Spain's striker, the one who orchestrated everything. Positioned just past midfield, Luna received the ball with his usual grace, letting it roll smoothly to his left foot. He didn't rush. He didn't look flustered. He had already scanned the field before the ball even reached him. The way his shoulders barely tensed, the way his stance remained relaxed, it was clear he felt no pressure. And yet, standing directly in his path was Itoshir Sae. Luna's eyes flickered with recognition, and for the first time all game, he smirked. He had played with Sae before, back when the Japanese prodigy had been called up to train with Real first team. He had seen Sae's ridiculous passing ability firsthand, experienced the sheer weight of his presence on the pitch. But Luna had never feared him. Because while SAE controlled the game, Luna finished it. He was the one who decided matches. That dynamic had never changed. Not then. Not now. And yet, here SAE was, standing between him and another attack, eyes unreadable, waiting for him to make a move. Luna smirked, rolling the ball under his foot. "You sure you want to do this, SAE?" SAE exhaled, arms loose at his sides. "You're wasting time." Luna chuckled, amused at the lack of hesitation. His foot flicked forward, executing the same move Naruto did, a rapid left-to-right shift that was designed to throw defenders off balance. But SAE didn't react. Luna's movements were too fast for most defenders to follow, but SAE had already read it before it even happened. He didn't fall for the feint, his stance unshaken, his body positioned perfectly to intercept the second touch. The moment Luna shifted his weight to follow through on his move, SAE struck. A sharp step forward, an angled jab with his foot clean. Interception. The crowd roared in shock. Luna's smirk faltered slightly as the ball rolled toward Naruto. SAE straightened up. "Still doing the same old tricks?" SAE murmured. Luna let out a small laugh, rubbing his jaw. "Didn't think you'd stop that so easily." SAE didn't even glance at him, already moving forward. "I don't fall for the same moves twice." Luna watched him go, amusement still flickering in his expression. "So, you're actually serious about this match?" SAE's gaze remained forward, following Naruto's movement. "I'm serious about winning." Luna stretched his arms above his head, grinning as he walked forward. "Then let's see if you can." Naruto had already begun to push forward, weaving through the midfield. SAE tracked the play, scanning the entire field. His metavision was in full effect, analyzing Spain's defensive structure in real time. The path was forming before him, the exact moment where Naruto needed to receive the ball already visible in his mind. He didn't hesitate. With a single motion, SAE launched a lob pass over Spain's defensive line, a perfect arc cutting through the air like a knife. The ball spun gracefully, dropping with exact precision. Naruto exploded into position, his movement too sharp for the center-backs to track. The Spanish defenders had barely reacted when Naruto chested the ball down inside the box. One-on-one with the goalkeeper again. The stadium held its breath. Naruto didn't rush, he saw the golden light top left corner. His right foot swung. A golden finesse shot, curved with deadly precision. The goalkeeper dived, but it was already late. The ball spun, curling perfectly past his outstretched fingertips, straight into the net. For the first time in the match, Japan had scored. Goal! Spain 3-1 Japan. The Japanese fans lost their minds. Flags waved violently in the air, voices that had been silent for so long now roaring with pure unfiltered joy. At home, Kushina screamed, nearly knocking over the coffee table as she jumped to her feet. "He did it," she shouted, grabbing Minato's arm and shaking it aggressively. Minato, while significantly calmer, was smiling proudly, arms crossed as he nodded. "He's really starting to take control." In the press box, Inori nearly fumbled her phone, her fingers scrambling to type the live update. Her breath hitched slightly as she looked at Naruto, standing tall, eyes fierce. She didn't even need to caption the moment. The world had already seen. John Parker, goal! He scores. Naruto Uzumaki scores. Japan finally breaks through. Goro Takemura, what a goal! Perfect pass from SAE, brilliant finish from Naruto. This is what we expected from these two. John Parker, and suddenly, Japan has life. It's 3-1. Luna had stopped walking when the ball hit the net. His teammates were looking at him, waiting for his reaction. He took a deep breath, then exhaled slowly. His fingers flexed slightly at his sides. Then, he grinned. "All right," he murmured, rolling his shoulders as he started walking back toward midfield. Naruto had scored. He had gotten past him once. But Luna wasn't serious yet. He was just watching. Just waiting. His smirk widened as he stepped back into position. So that's how it is, huh? He stretched his arms, cracking his neck. Alright, Naruto. Let's see if you can do that again. The energy inside stadium was completely different now. Japan had finally scored. The once lifeless crowd had transformed, voices rising in a deafening chorus of support. The Spanish fans remained dominant in numbers, but even they felt it, the shift in momentum, the slight tension creeping into Spain's play. But on the field, one player remained untouched by the noise. Luna stood near the center circle, stretching his arms as he exhaled slowly. He wasn't frustrated. He wasn't rattled. In fact, he looked amused. Spain was still in control, but the goal had changed something. The pace of the game, the rhythm, the flow, it was no longer dictated purely by Spain. Japan had disrupted it. Luna couldn't ignore it anymore. It wasn't just SAE's passing that had forced their hand. It was Naruto. Luna's green eyes flickered across the field, landing on the blonde forward blue eyes. Naruto had moved into position quickly, already preparing for the next battle. The two locked eyes. Luna grinned. So you're the one, huh? He muttered, rolling his shoulders as the ball was placed for kick-off. Naruto tilted his head slightly, smirking. What? Luna's smirk widened. I've heard about you. Japan's new prodigy. The one with the special vision. Naruto remained still, his expression unreadable. They're calling it the eyes of the future, Luna continued, his voice carrying an easy confidence. Saying you can see what's about to happen before anyone else. The crowd buzzed with anticipation. Naruto didn't react immediately, letting the word settle. Then, after a brief pause, his smirk deepened. They're wrong. His voice was steady, absolute. Luna raised an eyebrow, intrigued. It's called the Emperor's Eye. And in that moment, his left eye flickered to life, the light blue-rimmed iris sharpening as he stepped forward. Luna chuckled. All right then, let's see if those eyes of yours can keep up. 56th minute, Spain restarted play quickly. Their midfield worked seamlessly, shifting the ball between them as they spread the field, stretching Japan's defensive shape. Luna drifted into the half space, positioning himself between Japan's lines. His movement was effortless, his timing impeccable. He wasn't running at full speed, he didn't need to. His presence alone commanded the game. SAE and Naruto instantly reacted. Naruto stepped up first, cutting off a passing lane, forcing Spain's midfield to take an extra second to think. That was all SAE needed. With perfect anticipation, SAE intercepted the pass, quickly flicking the ball forward to Naruto. But Luna had already expected it. Before Naruto could turn, Luna was on him. A burst of acceleration, a sharp step forward, his shoulder nudged against Naruto's, using his body to press aggressively. The ball bobbled slightly, as Luna lunged in, foot reaching out. But Naruto's Emperor's Eye had already seen it. Instead of shielding the ball, Naruto let it roll past him, his body leaning to one side. Luna, expecting resistance, was already mid-step. A tiny miscalculation. And that was all Naruto needed. A sharp cut with his left foot, an angled body feint. Luna was thrown off balance for a split second. Naruto stole the ball cleanly. The crowd erupted. The moment the ball was at his feet, Naruto turned sharply, shifting his momentum forward. SAE was already running, and Naruto didn't hesitate. With a quick pass into space, he set SAE loose. SAE surged forward, gliding past the first Spanish midfielder with ease. His body moved smoothly, barely losing speed as he executed a double touch, slipping between two defenders. The path to goal was clear. One defender left. The keeper in position. But SAE wasn't looking at them. His eyes locked onto the goal, and his vision the perfect shot. With one motion, he wound up his left foot. A line drive shot. The ball rocketed through the air, too fast for the keeper to react. It slammed into the bottom corner of the net. Goal! Spain 3-2 Japan. The roar of the stadium was deafening. Japan had just scored again. The impossible comeback was starting to feel real. Sae stood near the edge of the penalty box, arms at his sides, his expression calm, unreadable. He had just slammed a perfect line drive shot into the bottom corner, stunning Spain, and igniting hope in every Japanese fan watching. Across the field, Naruto exhaled sharply, his eyes flickering with intensity. He had stolen the ball from Luna, set Sae up for the counter, and watched as his midfield general buried it with ease. For the first time since kickoff, Japan was playing like they belonged here. And for the first time all game, Leonardo Luna wasn't smiling. John Parker, goal! Japan scores again. Sae Itoshi with a brilliant strike, and now it's 3-2. Goro Takemura, that was a world-class goal. Sae read the situation perfectly, broke through Spain's midfield with incredible dribbling, and then finished it with a perfect line drive shot. John Parker, and don't forget how it started, Naruto Uzumaki just stole the ball from Leonardo Luna, and in the blink of an eye, Japan was on the counter. Goro Takemura, this is why these two are special. Sae and Naruto didn't panic after falling behind, they adjusted, they adapted, and now they're dragging Japan back into this game. John Parker, Spain dominated the first half, but now, suddenly, they're in danger. If Japan scores again, if they equalize, then everything changes. At home, millions of Japanese fans were losing their minds. In the Uzumaki household, Kushina was practically pacing back and forth, her hands shaking with excitement. We're actually doing it. We're actually doing it. Minato, ever the calm presence, couldn't hide his smile. Sae and Naruto are completely controlling the game now. Two students at Hakuho High were watching the game. Ryo Mikage sat frozen, his phone in his hands, watching the game with a blank stare. No way, he muttered under his breath. Nagi Saishiro lazily rested his chin on his hand, watching the match from his phone also. He blinked slowly, rewinding the replay. DMN, he murmured, staring at the way Sae's shot hit the net. That was kinda sick. Back in the stadium, Inori could barely type fast enough, her fingers shaking as she updated her live feed. It's 3-2. Itoshi Sae with an absolute laser. Japan is alive. She looked up, her camera zooming in on the field, capturing the moment Naruto and Sae exchanged a glance. That wasn't relief on their faces. That wasn't excitement. It was expectation. They weren't celebrating because they had scored. They were just getting started. While the world was losing its mind, Leonardo Luna stood completely still. He had stopped jogging the moment the ball hit the net, his hands resting on his hips, his head tilted slightly to the side. His teammates glanced at him, waiting for some kind of reaction. But Luna didn't move. He simply stared at Naruto. A tense pause filled the air. Then, he exhaled. His fingers flexed slightly at his sides. He rolled his shoulders back, stretching his neck before rubbing the back of his head. The smirk he had been wearing earlier? It was gone. Not out of frustration. Not out of anger. No, this was something else. Luna sighed, muttering under his breath. Alright, guess I can't take it easy anymore. His green eyes sharpened, gleaming under the stadium lights. For the first time all match, he looked serious. He turned his full attention to Naruto, his lips curving into a new smirk. This one was different. It wasn't amused. It wasn't dismissive. It was dangerous. Now, Luna murmured, cracking his knuckles, let's play for real. The stadium was still shaking from Sae's goal. The energy had shifted. Japan had fought their way back, clawing at the impossible lead Spain had built, and for the first time it felt like they had a chance. But all of that was about to disappear. Leonardo Luna stood at the center circle, stretching his neck as he waited for the referee's whistle. His teammates had gathered around him, all waiting to restart play, all looking for direction. He didn't need to say a word. They knew what was coming. Luna's green eyes locked onto Naruto one last time. His playful smirk was gone, replaced by a look of quiet calculation. And then, the whistle blew. The game was about to change again. Spain resumed play instantly. Their midfield moved seamlessly, shifting the ball around the field, but unlike before, they weren't just holding possession. This time, they were looking for one person. And within seconds, the ball was at Luna's feet. Naruto stepped up immediately, his emperor's eye sharpening as he scanned Luna's stance. He wasn't going to let him breathe. Luna rolled the ball with his left foot, barely moving, waiting. Naruto wasn't rushing in like an amateur. He knew how dangerous Luna was. The moment stretched, as Luna moved. A sudden burst of acceleration. Naruto reacted instantly, shifting to block him, but Luna wasn't going in one direction. A rapid step-overs again. His feet moved too fast, too smooth, too unpredictable. Naruto tried to adjust, but he saw it too late. His eyes. Luna cut to the right, exploding past him in a blur of red. Naruto spun, trying to recover, but Luna was already gone. Sae stepped up next. The Japanese midfielder moved into position, cutting off Luna's direct path. If anyone in Japan's squad could stop him, it was Sae. But Luna didn't hesitate. With the grace of a baller, he flicked the ball to the side and executed a Marseille turn, spinning away from Sae's tackle effortlessly. Sae cursed under his breath, immediately pivoting to follow, but Luna had already created just enough space. Then, with a single flick of his foot, a Rabona nutmeg. The ball slipped through Sae's legs before he could react. The crowd went crazy. Sae's eyes widened slightly as Luna blew past him, regaining the ball in stride. For the first time, the perfect midfielder looked helpless. Luna didn't slow down. He kept moving, pushing forward alone, as if Japan's defense wasn't even there. Naruto and Sae had failed. Now, the rest of Japan had to stop him. They couldn't. A Japanese midfielder lunged and Luna spun past him. The center-back tried to cut off his angle, Luna faked a shot, sending him flying the wrong way. Naruto watched, his breathing shallow, his mind racing. He's not slowing down. Luna danced through the box, gliding past three more defenders like they weren't even moving. And then, in one fluid motion, he shot. A first-time strike, outside of the foot, curling with perfect precision bar and in. The ball slammed into the top corner, the net shaking violently. Goal! Spain 4-2 Japan. The comeback. Dead. The scoreboard read 4-2 in favor of Spain. For Japan, the air felt heavy. Their comeback had been crushed in an instant, and now, reality had set in. Spain was simply better. On the field, Japan's players were motionless, their bodies tense, their eyes filled with something dangerous doubt. They had fought so hard just to claw their way back, only to watch Luna tear them apart. And standing at the center of it all, Leonardo Luna rolled his shoulders, his smirk returning. Sae exhaled sharply, his mind still processing what just happened. "That's why I stopped trying to be the best striker," he muttered under his breath, his voice carrying a rare weight of defeat. Because of players like him. Naruto didn't respond immediately. His fists clenched at his sides, his breathing slow, controlled. Luna had just walked past him like he was nothing. Sae had accepted it. But Naruto? He refused. He refused to believe that this was his limit. He refused to believe there was a wall he couldn't break. And in that moment, something inside him cracked. It wasn't rage. It wasn't desperation. It was something far worse. A realization. He had lost hope in Japan. The referee's whistle blew, signaling Japan's kick-off. Naruto took a step forward, but something was wrong. The moment his foot touched the ball, the atmosphere changed. The air became thick, almost suffocating. The tension in the stadium had been heavy before, but now, it felt different. Luna stopped walking. Sae frowned, his eyes narrowing. The crowd didn't understand what was happening yet, but those watching closely, those who knew Naruto personally, felt it instantly. A chill ran down Inori's spine as she stood in the press box, gripping her pen tightly. She had been reporting on football for some time now. She had covered rising talents, watched young prodigies grow into superstars, analyzed the best players in the world. She had seen players enter flow state before. And what she was witnessing right now was exactly that. She brought her microphone close, her voice carrying an edge of excitement mixed with unease. "This is bad," she whispered, her eyes locked onto Naruto. "But at the same time it's fascinating." Her colleague glanced at her, confused. "What do you mean?" Inori exhaled, her gaze unwavering. "Flow state." Inori continued, her voice firm yet breathless. "It's the mental state where a player becomes fully immersed in the game, where their body, mind, and instincts align perfectly." Her fingers trembled slightly as she flipped through her notes, piecing together everything she had researched about the greatest players in history. She had read stories about Messi's dribbling, where defenders swore he wasn't reacting, he was predicting. She had studied Cristiano Ronaldo's killer instinct, where he could find space in the box before anyone even realized it was there. She had watched Zidane, Maradona, Pelé, Johan Cruyff. All of them had moments where it felt like time itself slowed down for them. "They say when an athlete enters flow, their vision sharpens," she murmured, her eyes glued to Naruto. "Their reaction time becomes instantaneous. Their creativity reaches its peak." Her voice lowered slightly, as if she were witnessing something sacred. "And the scariest part?" She took a deep breath. "Once a player enters flow, stopping them becomes nearly impossible." Sae could feel it. The aura coming off of Naruto wasn't normal. For as long as he had known him, Naruto had always been a player with unshakable confidence, borderline arrogance. His ego was massive, but it had never been this. This wasn't the same Naruto. This was something else. His body language had shifted. The way he moved was calculated but fluid, effortless but intense. He wasn't bouncing on his heels in excitement, he was still. Too still. Sae opened his mouth. "Naruto, pass it back." Naruto ignored him. That was the final confirmation. This wasn't Naruto Uzumaki, the team player. This was Naruto Uzumaki, the Emperor. Luna hadn't moved. His hands rested on his hips, his smirk still in place. But his eyes had darkened slightly. Something felt off. The confidence Naruto always had was there, but now it was colder. It was something dangerous. Luna took a step forward, rolling his shoulders, speaking just loud enough for Naruto to hear. "You gonna take me on?" he asked, his voice carrying that same effortless arrogance. Naruto finally looked up. Luna's smirk froze slightly. "The Emperor's eye was gone. Instead, Naruto's left eye had shifted colors. The light blue ring around the iris had turned yellow. His pupil remained slit, but now, it radiated something entirely different. The Belial eye had awakened. Naruto tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. Then, he spoke. "Lower your head," he murmured, his voice softer than before but filled with absolute authority. Luna blinked, his smirk faltering for the first time all match. "What?" Naruto took his first step forward, the pressure in the air intensifying. "I'll beat you by myself." Luna's fingers twitched slightly at his sides. His heart beat just a little faster. For the first time, someone had dared to speak to him like that. Spain's players had felt pressure before. They had played against world-class opponents, against football's biggest names, but this was different. Luna could feel it the most. Naruto's entire being radiated dominance, not just confidence, not just arrogance. It was a certainty that he was going to win. As Naruto attacked, Luna stepped forward immediately, cutting off Naruto's angle. His stance was perfect, balanced, composed, ready for anything. He had already won this battle once. He would do it again. Naruto took his first touch, his body flowing with impossible smoothness, like he had melted into the very rhythm of the game. There was no wasted movement, no hesitation. Luna didn't hesitate either. He lunged, expecting a burst of speed, a flick to the side, but Naruto didn't move the way he should have. There was no explosive acceleration. No reckless dribbling. Instead, he baited Luna in. Luna's foot reached out for the tackle and Naruto did nothing. No resistance. No attempt to fight back. He simply let the ball roll forward just a few inches. Luna's mind screamed. What? It was too late. Luna's own momentum betrayed him. Naruto had tricked him into committing first, and in that briefest moment he was beaten. A single flick of Naruto's foot sent the ball gliding just past Luna's reach. Luna twisted, trying to recover, but Naruto was already 5 steps ahead. Luna's smirk widened, his green eyes flashing with real amusement. Now this, he murmured, already turning to chase. This is interesting. Spain's midfield immediately collapsed toward Naruto, sensing the danger. 3 defenders moved to suffocate him. It didn't matter. Naruto had already seen it all. With the Belial eye, he wasn't just reacting, he was controlling them. One defender overextended. A perfect Marseille turn spun him out of position. Another stepped too early. A double touch slipped the ball past him like he wasn't even there. The final midfielder lunged. Naruto let the ball roll, then casually flicked it through his legs. 3 down. The stadium went crazy. Spain's defensive line remained. Naruto's breath was steady, his movements growing more fluid, more precise. He wasn't playing at their pace anymore. They were playing at his. A center back rushed forward. Naruto faked right. The defender shifted too late. Naruto glided past him. Another defender lunged for a desperate tackle. Naruto stopped dead, sending the defender sliding past. The final defender hesitated. Naruto saw it. Quickly performing elastico, the defender collapsed to his knees, completely tricked. Now, there was only one left. The goalkeeper. The keeper rushed out, arms wide, cutting off the angles. Naruto didn't even look up. He already knew where the goal was. He saw the golden light flashing in the top right corner. Without breaking stride, he flicked the ball into the air with his left foot. A smooth, effortless transition. And then, in one fluid motion, a volley. His shot curved, spinning at an impossible angle, floating past the goalkeeper's outstretched hands. The ball slammed into the top corner. Golden power shot. Goal. Spain 4-3 Japan. For 3 full seconds, the stadium was silent. The ball had settled in the net, the crowd had watched it happen, but no one could react. Because what they had just seen was not normal. This wasn't just a solo goal, it wasn't just a moment of brilliance. It was a message. And Naruto Uzumaki wasn't done. Without a single celebration, he bent down, picked up the ball, and walked back to midfield. No shouting, no fist pumps, no theatrics. Just cold, ruthless silence. He placed the ball down at the center circle. And then, he waited. The Japanese fans in the stands couldn't even scream at first. It was too much. They had witnessed something that shouldn't have been possible. Then, like a wave breaking, the stadium erupted. At home, Kushina covered her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. Minato, usually calm, let out a long, slow breath. That wasn't human. Back at Hakuho High, Ryo Mikage slammed his drink onto the table, spilling it everywhere. Equals. Unreal, he whispered, shaking his head. That's just not normal. Nagi Saishiro rewound the clip, staring at the screen. He didn't blink. His voice was barely a whisper. I want to play against him. John Parker, I don't even know what to say. That might be one of the best goals I've ever seen. Goro Takemura, that wasn't just a goal. That was a statement. John Parker, Naruto just took out Spain's entire team, alone. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that in my life. Goro Takemura, and he's not even celebrating. John Parker, no. Because for him, this isn't over. Luna stood still, his smirk frozen in place. All right, he murmured, cracking his knuckles as he stepped forward. Guess I really do have to take him seriously now. Japan's third goal had been a moment of pure genius, a solo effort that shattered expectations, leaving the world speechless. 20 minutes remained. The impossible was starting to feel real. Yet, amidst the chaos, Naruto stood still at the center circle, waiting. His belial eye glowed faintly. There was no celebration. There was no acknowledgement of the thousands of fans chanting his name. There was only the ball at his feet, and the man who now stood across from him. Leonardo Luna. He had watched the goal in silence, felt the shift in the game, understood the weight of the moment. But now, as he stepped forward, his green eyes burned with anticipation. He was finally interested. Luna wasn't playing around anymore. Spain resumed play instantly. Unlike before, there was no hesitation, no slow build-up of possession. They didn't want to waste time, they wanted to shut down this momentum before it could become dangerous. The ball moved fast, weaving between the Spanish midfielders with effortless precision, yet all of it felt like a formality. Because there was only one destination. Within seconds, the ball reached Luna. The crowd held their breath. Naruto was already moving. His body was loose, yet every step was precise, every motion calculated. His vision, heightened by the belial eye, saw the world in a way no one else could. Every muscle twitch in Luna's body. Every flicker of movement in his eyes. Every subtle weight shift in his stance. He saw it all. Luna took his first touch. Naruto struck. A burst of acceleration, his foot extended a clean tackle. The ball was his. The stadium erupted one more. Luna, however, didn't panic. Even as the ball rolled toward Naruto's control, he reacted instantly. A slight delay, a half-second adjustment, a defensive pressure from behind. Luna lunged forward, his body colliding into Naruto's shoulder, disrupting the balance of his dribble. Naruto didn't fall, but it was just enough to break his momentum. Luna's foot slid underneath, poking the ball free, a perfectly timed challenge. Now, the ball was back in Luna's possession. The Spanish fans roared in approval. This wasn't a one-sided fight. This was war. Luna didn't slow down, with one motion, he pushed forward, the ball glued to his foot, his reflexes quicker than humanly possible. Naruto adjusted his stance immediately, pivoting, prepared for the next battle. But Luna wasn't just fast. He was fluid. His feet flickering too quickly to read. Naruto's belial eye strained to track it, his pupils adjusting rapidly as Luna feinted right, but it was a trick. At the last second, Luna's weight shifted left, a cut so sharp, so precise, that it looked like his body had teleported. Naruto moved to intercept, but Luna had already broken past him. The crowd exploded again. But Naruto wasn't shaken. His foot dug into the ground, he turned immediately, chasing. Luna, however, was already weaving forward, slicing through Japan's midfield like it didn't exist. One defender lunged in. A quick turn wiped him out completely. Another attempted to block his path, a quick elastico slipped the ball between his legs. SAE had seen enough. His eyes burned with frustration, his mind racing. He had spent the last year training against some of the best midfielders in the world, and yet, even he struggled to contain Luna's movement. Naruto was still chasing. As SAE suddenly understood something. For the first time, he wasn't looking at Naruto the striker. He was looking at Naruto, the future of Japanese football. The realization sent a shiver down his spine. Luna had reached the final third, only one more defender left. But Naruto was there. A sharp sprint, a perfectly timed approach this time, he wouldn't let him through. Luna grinned. All right then, he muttered. Then he flicked the ball up. A perfectly weighted rainbow flick, sailing over Naruto's head. Naruto's belial eye snapped to attention. Time slowed. He saw the angle, and he saw the mistake. The instant Luna landed, Naruto stole the ball. Not through power. Not through speed. Through inevitability. Luna had set himself up for a continuation, but Naruto had already positioned himself where the ball would drop before Luna even touched the ground. A single chest trap, a flick forward, Naruto was already sprinting. Spain was exposed. Naruto surged forward, the field opened before him. Sae saw it immediately. Luna, still recovering, glanced up and his smirk vanished. Naruto was gone. A perfect sprint, a single burst of speed, his body in perfect control. A Spanish defender rushed in from the side, Naruto cut inside sharply, spinning away. Another attempted to body him, a shoulder drop, a burst forward, he left him in the dust. Now, the penalty box. The final moment, Spain's keeper rushed out, desperate. Naruto's eyes locked onto the golden light in the top left corner. One touch. Golden finesse shot. The ball curled, bending impossibly, slicing through the air like a sword. Goal. Spain 4-4 Japan. The stadium erupted in madness. Naruto stood still at the edge of the penalty box, his chest rising and falling in perfect rhythm. He didn't celebrate. He didn't raise his hands. He simply turned and stared at Luna. Luna, still standing at midfield, watched him in silence. Then, he smiled. A true, genuine smile. The stadium was on fire. Fans from both sides were on their feet, roaring with everything they had. The scoreboard read 4-4, but neither team was satisfied. This wasn't just a match anymore. It was war. Both Spain and Japan had clawed their way through 90 minutes of pure footballing chaos, and now, as the final 5 minutes ticked away, the air had become something suffocating. Every player on the pitch felt it. The tension. The sheer weight of the moment. One last goal would decide everything. Luna stood at the halfway line, rolling his shoulders, his green eyes sharp. He wasn't smirking anymore. Naruto stood across from him, his posture loose, but his aura overwhelming. His golden-rimmed belial eye burned bright, scanning everything, seeing every possible future unfold in real time. Spain had possession, but this wasn't just about keeping the ball anymore. They were going for the kill. And so was Japan. Luna adjusted his wristband before locking eyes with Naruto. His voice was steady, smooth, dangerous. We're ending this now. Naruto exhaled, tilting his head slightly. His voice carried no hesitation. No, he said. I am. Spain launched forward with unrelenting precision. Their passes were crisp, clean, each movement calculated to perfection. Their midfield rotated like a machine, dragging Japan's defenders out of position. But Naruto had already seen the pattern. His belial eye mapped out everything. The ball swung to the left, Naruto moved before it even happened. A Spanish winger sprinted down the flank, looking to cross. Naruto was already there, intercepting it cleanly. Gasps echoed through the stadium. Naruto didn't just react. He saw the future. Without hesitation, he flicked the ball forward, a perfect counter was forming. Sae exploded into space, receiving Naruto's pass with a flawless touch. His perfect kick technique activated instantly, sending a 40-meter-long pass over Spain's defensive line. Naruto was already moving. The moment the ball left Sae's foot, Naruto knew where it would land. He sprinted forward, breaking past his defender, his body perfectly aligned with the pass. Spain's final center-back was his only obstacle. The defender hesitated, then lunged once more, but Naruto made him crumble again. He was through one-on-one with the keeper. The stadium held its breath. Naruto planted his foot, but at the last second, a red blur flew in again. Luna. A perfectly timed slide tackle, his foot scraping the ball just enough to send it out of bounds. Naruto stumbled forward, stopping just outside the penalty box. The referee's whistle shrieked. A foul. The Spanish defender had clipped Sae's foot in the build-up. Japan had a free kick. Last seconds of the match. The whistle cut through the night air, piercing through the roaring chaos of the stadium. Naruto stood frozen, his belial eye glowing fiercely as he processed what had just happened. This was it. The game was tied at 4-4. This would be the last kick of the match. A free kick, 25 meters out, slightly to the left of the penalty spot. The stadium was shaking, the energy of tens of thousands of fans pressing down on the pitch like an unseen force. In the commentary box, the voices of the commentators carried the weight of the moment. John Parker, this is it. The final kick of the game. A last-second free kick for Japan. Goro Takemura, this is unreal. Japan was down 4-2, and now they have a chance to win it. John Parker, and the one stepping up is none other than Naruto Uzumaki. The camera panned to Naruto, standing over the ball, his expression calm yet terrifying. The crowd murmured, an overwhelming wave of anticipation rising across the world. Back at the Uzumaki house, Kushina was clutching Minato's arm with an iron grip, her fingernails digging into his skin. Come on, Naruto, she whispered, her voice trembling. Minato exhaled slowly. He'll score. Kushina didn't respond, she already knew that. She just couldn't breathe until it happened. In Hakuho High, Ryo could not believe what was happening. This is insane, he muttered under his breath. Nagi leaned forward, resting his chin on his hands. His white hair hung over his sharp gray eyes, watching Naruto with focus. Will he make it? A student whispered. Ryo turned toward Nagi, expecting an answer. The lazy genius didn't blink. He didn't hesitate. Of course he will. High in the press box, Inori gripped her pen tightly, her heart pounding against her ribs. Her hands trembled slightly as she brought the microphone close to her lips. This, she whispered, is his moment. She knew he would score. She had seen him do the impossible before. And yet, she closed her eyes anyway. Naruto stood over the ball, his breath slow, his mind clear. Luna stood inside the defensive wall, his gaze locked onto Naruto. His voice carried across the field, steady as ever. You can't score this. Naruto didn't respond. His eyes burned, his vision sharpening as the golden light flickered inside the goal. He stepped back as Isagi walked up beside him. The two stood side by side, the entire world watching, waiting. Isagi's voice was quiet. If you miss, the game ends. Naruto smirked. I don't miss. The noise of the stadium faded away. The voices, the tension, the pressure, none of it mattered. This was everything. This was his entire journey leading up to this moment. The trials at Real, where he first realized he wasn't good enough. The crushing loss to Julian Loki, when he understood what it meant to truly lose. The broken ankle. The pain. The doubts. The questions. The journey through Ubers, learning discipline, tactics, how to command the field. The match against Spain, against Leonardo Luna, his greatest rival yet. And now, standing here, in front of the world, he had one chance. Naruto exhaled slowly. His body was light. His mind was clear. His vision burned with golden light. The referee blew the whistle, as Naruto took his first step. Then his second. The third stride carried him into his shooting motion. His foot struck the ball cleanly, perfectly, the contact crisp and controlled. The ball exploded off his boot, curving violently mid-air, spinning with the impossible precision of a golden deadball. The Spanish goalkeeper launched himself, stretching every inch of his body toward the top corner. But the ball slammed into the top right corner, hitting the net with a resounding snap. Goal! Japan 5-4 Spain. John Parker, it's in. It's in. Naruto Uzumaki has just scored the greatest goal in Japanese football history. Goro Takemura, I can't believe it. Japan wins in the last second. This is a miracle. The Japanese fans lost their minds, people throwing drinks in the air, falling to their knees, screaming at the top of their lungs. At home, Kushina buried her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. Minato closed his eyes and smiled. Well done, son. Inside Hakuho High, the classroom exploded, students jumping onto their desks, screaming Naruto's name. Ryo stood up, gripping his hair, his eyes wide with disbelief. That's the best goal I've ever seen. Nagi smirked, tilting his head slightly. Yeah, he whispered. He's insane. Inori, still frozen in the press box, finally opened her eyes. Her fingers trembled against her microphone. Her voice came out in a whisper. Naruto Uzumaki has just changed everything. As the ball settled in the net, the referee blew his whistle. Full time. Japan 5-4 Spain. Naruto stood still, breathing heavy, his vision hazy. His teammates rushed him, screaming, tackling him to the ground in celebration. But in the chaos, as bodies crashed around him, Naruto looked up, his eyes locking onto one person. Luna. The Spanish forward stood still, staring at the goal, his expression unreadable. Slowly, Luna exhaled, then grinned. He walked over, offering a hand. Naruto smirked, gripping it firmly. Luna chuckled. All right, Emperor. Next time I'm not losing. Naruto smirked, his belial eye flashing one last time before disappearing. Neither am I. The aftermath of Japan's unbelievable 5-4 victory over Spain, the energy inside the stadium was bouncing. Fans still filled the stands, refusing to leave, their voices ringing in unison. Uzumaki! 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 The media storm had already begun. Every major sports outlet, every football network, and every analyst across the globe had turned their attention to one name. Naruto Uzumaki, the 16-year-old who had come off the bench and destroyed one of the strongest teams in the world. Journalists swarmed the interview area, desperate to capture every word. Sitting in front of a row of microphones, Naruto leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, still wearing his match jersey, slightly damp with sweat. His expression was unreadable. There was no excitement. No joyous grin. No sense of accomplishment. Just quiet, simmering intensity. The press conference had barely begun, but already, the room felt like it was holding its breath. A reporter from PIFA's official channel was the first to speak. Naruto, congratulations on an absolutely historic performance. How does it feel to score 4 goals at the World Cup? Naruto tilted his head slightly, eyes narrowing just a fraction. I didn't really think about that, he muttered. I just wanted to win. A brief silence, as some of the reporters blinked. They had expected excitement, pride, maybe even a cocky response. But this? This was a player who was already looking ahead. Another reporter leaned in, adjusting their mic. Japan just defeated one of the tournament's favorites. Is this a sign that Japan has arrived on the world stage? Naruto exhaled sharply, shaking his head. No. More silence. The journalists shifted slightly in their seats, caught off guard by his bluntness. Naruto leaned forward, his fingers tapping lightly on the table. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it, something sharp that cut through the air like a blade. Football in Japan is behind. Way behind. Murmurs broke out in the room. Naruto's emperor's eye flickered for a moment, his gaze cutting through the crowd. Our methods are outdated. Our players aren't trained to win at the highest level. And most importantly, we don't play football like the rest of the world does. He spoke slowly, deliberately, like he wanted his words to be etched into history. We're not ready. The room fell dead silent. Across the stadium, in a separate media room, SAE sat in front of another row of cameras. Unlike Naruto, his posture was completely relaxed, but his voice carried the same brutal honesty. Japan just pulled off a miracle win, a Spanish reporter started. What does this say about the future of Japanese football? SAE barely blinked. It says that we need to change. More murmurs. The journalists were starting to realize something. Both of Japan's young stars were saying the same thing. Sae leaned forward, lacing his fingers together. We won today because of Naruto. Not because Japan is a world-class football nation. A heavy pause. As Sae's teal eyes shined slightly. If Japan wants to compete with Europe and South America, we need to rethink everything. Our training, our mindset, our entire system. His voice lowered, almost like he was speaking directly to the higher-ups watching from home. What we're doing now? It's not enough. After the main press conference ended, Naruto was led toward a smaller interview area where one journalist waited alone. Inori. She stood by the interview stand, dressed in a sleek, fitted black blazer, her long pink hair falling in soft waves. Her usual professional demeanor was there, but in her eyes there was something else. Naruto stepped up, adjusting his shirt slightly. She lifted her microphone, her voice soft but steady. Naruto, first of all, congratulations. This was a performance that will go down in history. How does it feel? Naruto smirked slightly, tilting his head. You already asked me that on Twitter. Inori arched a brow. And you didn't answer me there either. Naruto chuckled, running a hand through his blonde hair. Like I said, I just wanted to win. Inori's lips parted slightly. She had interviewed a lot of players. Many would have used this moment to talk about their dream, their emotions, how much it meant to them. But Naruto? His focus was somewhere else entirely. He wasn't even thinking about this win anymore. Because Naruto was thinking about the next battle. Still, she pressed on. So then what did it feel like? Naruto's eyes flickered slightly. He thought for a moment, then turned to face her directly. What did you think about it? Inori blinked. She hadn't expected him to flip the question back onto her like last time. She hesitated for a split second, then exhaled. It was impressive. Naruto grinned slightly, his gaze sharp but amused. Good, he murmured. Because I have more for you later, personally. Before she could respond, he winked, turning on his heel and walking toward the tunnel. She stood there, frozen for just a second. Her microphone lowered slightly. Her heartbeat quickened just for a moment. Then, with a deep breath, she lifted her microphone again, watching as the golden-haired emperor disappeared into the depths of the stadium. The world of football had changed. The moment Naruto Uzumaki's free kick crashed into the net, it was as if time had split into two realities before that goal, and after. The shockwaves rippled across the football world, reaching every corner of the sport. From players to managers, to analysts, to legends of the game, all of them had witnessed something unprecedented. A 16-year-old had just torn apart one of Spain's golden generations and led Japan to their biggest victory in history. This wasn't just about the World Cup. It was about a new king announcing his arrival. Inside Uber's private training facility, a group of players sat in a dark film room, the massive projector screen displaying the post-match highlights. The room was dead silent. The replay showed Naruto's final goal in slow motion, his body perfectly aligned, the ball curving through the air, spinning like it had a will of its own before smashing into the back of the net. A loud whistle broke the silence. He actually pulled that off. Snuffy leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, a slow grin creeping onto his face. His sharp, analytical eyes flickered with amusement. Sitting beside him, Lorenzo rested his chin on his hand, a wide, toothy grin spreading across his face, his golden teeth glinting in the dim light. Uzumaki's looking real strong, Lorenzo muttered, his voice dragging in a slow, almost creepy tone. He ran a hand through his hair. Snuffy exhaled, shaking his head slightly. I knew he'd be a monster one day, but this is earlier than I expected. Lorenzo chuckled, tapping his golden teeth with his finger. He said he'd make me all the money in the world if I helped him win. Looks like he wasn't lying, huh? The other Uber's players murmured amongst themselves, all staring at the screen in disbelief. A defender spoke up, voice laced with tension. If he keeps this up, he'll be a problem. A real one. Snuffy smirked, eyes gleaming with something unreadable. He already is. Lorenzo leaned back, stretching his long arms behind his head. I hope we play him again, he murmured, his creepy grin widening. It'd be a shame if we didn't get to eat him up one more time. Snuffy just chuckled, shaking his head. Oh, we will. That's inevitable. The screen continued playing, highlighting every moment Naruto dominated the game. The room stayed silent again. They all knew it. This wasn't just a one-off performance. This was the beginning of something much, much bigger. Inside the Spanish locker room, there was no anger, no outrage. Luna sat on the bench, a towel draped over his head, his hands clasped together as he stared at the floor. His mind replayed every moment of the match, every duel, every exchange, every second he had battled Naruto Uzumaki. He had never been challenged like that before. Not by anyone his age. Not even by some of the best players he had faced in Spain. Slowly, his fingers tightened, his lips curling into a small, sharp grin. Next time, he muttered under his breath, I'm taking your head, Emperor. A large monitor screen illuminated the darkness. The game replayed on a loop, displaying Naruto's free kick from every possible angle. The ball spinning, bending, flying like it had been guided by fate itself. A tall, shadowed figure stood before the screen, hands in his pockets. His sharp eyes gleamed behind rectangular glasses, reflecting the screen's light. The corners of his mouth curled upward. A slow, deliberate smile. He reached up, adjusting his glasses with a single finger. He might have solved the problem. The screen flickered as the match ended. But for this man, the game was only beginning. Back in the Japan national team locker room was far from a place of celebration. Despite their unbelievable 5-4 victory over Spain, the atmosphere was tense. Players sat on the benches, some still catching their breath, some lost in thought. The weight of what had just happened still hadn't fully settled in. But one thing was clear. Japan hadn't won because they were a great team. They had won because of two players. Uzumaki Naruto and Itoshire Sae. And now, their coaches were furious. The head coach, a rigid man with decades of traditional football experience, stormed into the locker room, his jaw clenched, his hands trembling from barely contained anger. Behind him, the rest of the coaching staff followed, equally tense. The moment the door slammed shut, the explosion came. What the hell was that? You two, and she jabbed a finger at Naruto and Sae, what the hell do you think you're doing trashing our football program in front of the entire world? Naruto, still seated, didn't even flinch. He simply leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, his emperor's eye locking onto the coach without a single hint of hesitation. Was I wrong? The room fell dead silent. The head coach blinked, thrown off by the bluntness. Naruto stood up slowly, rolling his shoulders before tilting his head. Because from where I'm standing, if Sae and I weren't here, Japan would be a laughingstock. No, he corrected himself, his voice sharp, they still kinda are. A few of the older players sucked in a breath, eyes flickering between Naruto and the coach. No one had ever dared to speak like this before. The coach's face twisted in rage. You tell me I'm wrong. Naruto's voice cut through the air like a blade. His expression was calm, but his words carried undeniable weight. Tell me our system isn't outdated. Tell me that the only reason we didn't get embarrassed today wasn't because of me and Sae. Tell me Japan has even a sliver of a chance in this tournament if things don't change. The coach couldn't. Because Naruto was right. Japan had been dominated for most of the match. Their tactics, their ideology, none of it was working. They had been saved by two players who didn't follow the Japanese way of football. Naruto stepped forward, his presence commanding. If you don't want to hear the truth, that's fine. Keep living in the past. Keep pretending we can compete with Spain, Germany, and Brazil with your weak-ass, team-first mentality while the rest of the world gets ahead. His gaze darkened. But don't expect me to be quiet about it. A heavy silence settled over the room. The coaching staff was visibly fuming, but they didn't press further. They couldn't. They could be mad all they wanted. But they couldn't argue with the truth. The head coach exhaled sharply, rubbing his temple before glaring at Naruto and SAE. "We'll deal with this at the hotel." And with that, the coaches stormed out, the door slamming shut behind them. As the tension settled, SAE let out a breath, finally standing up from the bench. He stretched his arms above his head before giving Naruto a sidelong glance, his red eyes flickering with something unreadable. "You're insane," he muttered. Naruto scoffed, rolling his neck. "Took you long enough to figure that out." SAE exhaled through his nose, shaking his head slightly. "You know, I used to think I was the only one in Japan who actually saw how things were. That I was the only one who understood how far behind we really are." His gaze sharpened, locking onto Naruto with rare intensity. "But you," a small pause as SAE watched Naruto. "You might actually be able to change things." Naruto raised an eyebrow. He wasn't expecting that. SAE had always looked down on Japanese football. For him to say that meant something. Naruto grinned, crossing his arms. "TCH, took you long enough to respect me, SAE." SAE smirked, tilting his head slightly. "I respected you as a player. But now?" He shoved his hands in his pockets. "I'd like you to come back to Real. So, we can continue to dominate." Naruto chuckled, shaking his head. "Well, DMN. Guess that makes us friends now?" SAE didn't answer immediately. Then, with a small exhale, he muttered, "Yeah. I guess it does." For the first time, it didn't feel like rivalry. It felt like something more. A partnership. Two players who might actually change Japanese football forever. The sound of rushing water filled the air, steam rising in gentle waves inside the hotel's private shower room. Naruto stood under the stream, his muscles sore, his mind still buzzing from the match. Even though the adrenaline had faded, his body still remembered every moment. Every pass. Every tackle. Every shot. And, of course, the final goal. He exhaled deeply, running a hand through his wet blonde hair. The world had changed tonight. But right now, he wasn't thinking about football. His mind was somewhere else. On her. After his shower, Naruto threw on a loose black t-shirt and some joggers before stepping out into the quiet hotel hallway. The tension from the team meeting still lingered in the air, but Naruto had no interest in dealing with it. He had somewhere else to be. As he found Inori in the lounge area, seated near the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city lights. Her long pink hair was pulled back into a loose ponytail, her slender fingers wrapped around a cup of tea. The dim lighting made her look softer, more relaxed than usual. She didn't notice him at first. Naruto smirked. "You're gonna get wrinkles if you keep thinking that hard." Inori glanced up, startled, before rolling her eyes. "Very funny." Naruto dropped into the seat beside her, stretching his arms behind his head. "You're always so serious," he teased. "It's cute." Inori huffed. "I prefer focused." Naruto grinned. "Same thing." They sat there for a moment, watching the city glow beneath them. The atmosphere was comfortable, natural, like this wasn't their first time sitting like this. Because it wasn't. They had spent a lot of time together lately. Naruto tapped his fingers against his knee, glancing at her from the corner of his eye. "Inori." She looked at him, tilting her head slightly. "Yeah?" Naruto hesitated just for a second. Then, he exhaled and leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I feel a connection with you," he said, his voice steady. Inori's fingers stilled against her cup. Naruto didn't look away. "I know we've only been out once, but we've spent a lot of time together. And I like being around you. A lot." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Inori's face, her lips pressing together as she turned her gaze back to the window. Naruto watched her carefully. He could already see it. She was overthinking. Before she could say anything, he spoke again, his voice softer. You're worried about how it looks, huh? Inori's eyes widened slightly. What? Naruto smirked, shaking his head. I can see it written all over your face. She hesitated, biting her lip. It's not that I don't like you, she admitted quietly. Naruto raised an eyebrow. So you do like me? Inori sighed, looking away. That's not the point. Naruto leaned back, waiting. She took a deep breath. You're becoming more famous every day. And I don't want people to think that I'm just, she paused, searching for the right words. Naruto's grin softened into something gentler, more understanding. Inori. She looked at him again, her expression uncertain. Naruto reached forward, gently tucking a strand of pink hair behind her ear. Stop overthinking it. Her breath hitched slightly. Naruto's voice was calm, sure, absolute. If you like me, then nothing else matters. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then, slowly, Inori nodded. Yeah, she whispered. I like you. Naruto smirked. Good. And before she could say anything else, he kissed her. It was soft at first, like they were both testing the waters. Then, Naruto tilted his head slightly, deepening it just enough to make her fingers tighten against his shirt. He smirked against her lips, enjoying how she melted just a little. When they finally pulled away, Inori let out a small laugh, shaking her head. You're impossible. Naruto grinned. Yeah, but you like that about me. She sighed dramatically. Unfortunately. They sat there, a quiet warmth settling between them, something unspoken but understood. Then, Inori cleared her throat. By the way, I wanted to tell you something. Naruto raised an eyebrow. What, you want to confess more feelings? Inori elbowed him, making him chuckle. No, she said, rolling her eyes. I wanted to tell you about a player from Germany. Naruto stretched his arms, tilting his head. Germany? What about them? He scored 2 goals against Costa Rica today. Naruto blinked. Oh yeah? Didn't really notice any big names in that squad. Inori's expression shifted slightly, something mysterious, almost cautious. That's because he wasn't playing before. Naruto frowned. What? He arrived late to the World Cup, Inori continued. Which is why you probably didn't notice him before. Naruto tilted his head. Okay, so why are you telling me this? Inori took a sip of her tea before glancing at him, her eyes glinting with something unreadable. Because this boy also goes by the name Emperor. Naruto's grin faded slightly. Emperor? She nodded. Or, better yet, the Emperor chosen by God. Naruto blinked. Then, slowly, his lips curled into a sharp, dangerous smirk. Interesting. The hallways of the media center were quiet. Naruto and SAE walked side by side, their strides even, their postures relaxed. Their minds were already on the next challenge, Costa Rica. Naruto ran a hand through his blonde hair, exhaling sharply. Even if we win, if Spain beats Germany, they'll probably go through on goal difference. SAE barely spared him a glance. It doesn't matter. Naruto raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? SAE adjusted the sleeves of his tracksuit, his voice calm, indifferent. We've already proven everything we needed to. You played the game of your life, and I showed why I'm the best midfielder Japan's ever had. If we don't make it past the group stage, it won't change anything. Naruto frowned, kicking a stray pebble across the hallway. That's not how I see it, he muttered. SAE sighed. Of course it isn't. Naruto smirked slightly. Because I'm gonna win this whole thing. SAE scoffed but didn't argue. As they reached the door to the media room, Naruto pushed it open. And came face to face with Julian Loki. Loki stood in the doorway, hands in the pockets of his sleek black tracksuit, his sharp, brown eyes staring directly at Naruto. For a moment, everything was still. Naruto's emperor's eye locked onto Loki's gaze, scanning him, analyzing him, instinctively reading the muscles in his body. But unlike their first meeting in Europe, Naruto didn't feel the same crushing helplessness. Not this time. Loki tilted his head slightly, his smirk small but unmistakable. I was wondering when I'd run into you. Naruto mirrored his smirk. You were looking for me? Naruto spoke better English this time around. Loki exhaled through his nose, glancing at Sae briefly before shifting his attention back. Your ankle's looking better. A calculated, smug remark designed to poke at an old wound. Naruto's smirk didn't waver. His fingers curled slightly at his sides, his body loose but ready. Yeah, it's fine, he said smoothly, rolling his neck. Then, with a sharp, mocking grin, he added. I think you could rock the broken ankle look better. So, why don't we find out? Loki's smirk didn't fade, but his eyes darkened just a fraction. Before either of them could move before the first step, the first spark that would turn into a full-fledged fight. Sae stepped between them. TCH. This is stupid. Naruto exhaled through his nose, tilting his head. Nah, this is payback. His eyes locked onto Loki's again, this time sharper, more serious. You broke my ankle, Naruto said, his voice lower, calmer but carrying an edge that could cut through steel. You knew you were about to get beat, so you did that move to save your own rep. Loki's gaze flickered. For a moment, something flashed across his face, something unreadable, something dangerous. Then, a voice from the side interrupted them. Well. The tone was silky smooth, laced with arrogance so pure it felt like it carried weight. A slow clap echoed through the hallway. Naruto and Loki turned to see Michael Kaiser leaning casually against the wall, watching them with an amused smirk. His blue eyes gleamed beneath sharp red eyeliner, his blonde hair accented by blue streaks falling perfectly into place. His tattoos crawled up his left arm like intertwined chains, the blue rose ink on his neck standing out sharply against his skin. He looked at Loki first, his smirk widening. What's wrong, Loki? You was about to lose, so you decided to snap some bones instead? Pathetic. Loki's jaw twitched. Naruto raised an eyebrow. He didn't know who this guy was, but he liked what he was hearing so far. Kaiser pushed himself off the wall, taking slow, measured steps toward them. He walked like someone who owned the world, like a main character stepping into his own movie. Then, his icy blue eyes landed on Naruto. Uzumaki. Naruto tilted his head. And you are? Kaiser smirked, placing a hand over his chest as if dramatically introducing himself. Michael Kaiser. Remember the name, because the next time you hear it, it'll be when I'm making you look like an extra in my story. Sae exhaled sharply, rubbing his temple. Oh, great. Another one. Naruto chuckled. So, you're that guy from Germany, huh? Kaiser's smirk deepened. Not just that guy. The best. You'll see soon enough. He turned slightly, glancing at Loki one last time. But for now, let's enjoy watching this little fraud fall apart. Loki didn't react, but his eyes narrowed just enough to betray a flicker of irritation. Kaiser's grin widened, satisfied. Then, without another word, he turned on his heel, walking off into the hallway like a king exiting the stage. Naruto watched him go, smirking to himself. This World Cup was getting more interesting by the second. He thought. The hotel elevator dinged softly, the silver doors sliding open to reveal the quiet hallway of the Japan national team's floor. Naruto stepped out, his duffel bag slung over one shoulder, his body still tired from the media interviews. Sae walked beside him, hands shoved deep into his pockets, his usual unimpressed expression in place. Your problem is that you attract too much attention, Sae muttered, side-eyeing Naruto. Naruto scoffed. I don't attract attention. Attention attracts me. Sae sighed heavily. That's even worse. As they walked toward their rooms, Naruto pulled out his phone, finally checking it for the first time since stepping off the interview stage. His notifications were on fire. Trending topics. Hashtag Naruto vs Loki. Hashtag Loki would destroy Naruto. Hashtag Naruto would end Loki. Hashtag World Cup drama. Hashtag Uzumaki vs Loki coming soon. Naruto blinked. What the hell? Clicking on one of the videos, he saw a crystal clear clip of him and Loki standing face to face in the hallway, tension thick, eyes locked like they were about to throw hands. The title of said video: Naruto Uzumaki and Julian Loki beef before World Cup match. These two really hate each other. The comments were just as insane. Baller_shark, Naruto was about to end him, bro had that post-time skip anime MC energy. Loki_goat, Loki would break his other ankle LMAO, y'all need to stop. Egoist_empire, Naruto's got that dog in him, I need this match now. His face went completely white as he immediately clicked on his private messages. Mom, Naruto. Call me. Right now. Naruto swallowed hard. SHT. SAE glanced over, raising an eyebrow. What? Naruto slowly turned his phone around, showing SAE the message from Kushina. SAE snorted. Oh. You're dead. Naruto groaned, rubbing his face. This is gonna S. With a deep breath, Naruto tapped the call button, bracing himself. The line barely rang twice before a voice exploded through the speaker. Naruto Uzumaki. What the hell were you thinking? Naruto yanked the phone away from his ear, wincing. Mom, it's not what it. I just got done celebrating your win and then I opened my phone to see you about to fight someone in a hallway? At the World Cup? Naruto sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. I wasn't about to fight him, okay? It was just. Don't you okay me? Do you know how bad this looks? Naruto winced. It's fine, really. It's not fine. Do you know how many companies are watching you right now? Your name is becoming a global brand, Naruto. You're not just some kid playing in a school match. This is the World Cup. Everyone is watching. Naruto ran a hand through his hair. Mom, I hear you, but. And do you know what happens when you start fights on camera? Do you want to be seen as some thug footballer? Someone who can't control his temper? You think sponsors want that? Naruto let out a deep breath. Mom. Silence. Kushina's voice dropped lower. Naruto, I know you. And I know you don't start things without a reason. Naruto blinked, caught off guard. His mother's voice softened, but there was still a sharp edge. Did he say something? Naruto exhaled, rubbing his forehead. He brought up my ankle. Then, Kushina's voice changed completely. Oh, that little SHT. Naruto grinned despite himself. See? Now you're getting it. I still don't like how this looks, Kushina grumbled. But fine. Just Naruto, you're on a world stage now. Be smart. Naruto smirked. I'm always smart. Kushina sighed. Minato, your son is being a smartass again. A calm voice came from the background. He gets it from you, dear. Kushina scoffed. Oh, shut up. Naruto chuckled. Alright. I promise I won't fight anyone. Unless they deserve it. Naruto. Fine. Kushina sighed again. I love you. Just don't give me a heart attack every other day, okay? Naruto smiled. No promises. She groaned. I'm hanging up now. The call ended. Naruto let out a deep breath, relaxing against the hallway wall. Well, SAE said, standing next to him, arms crossed. That could have been worse. Naruto shot him a deadpan look. You weren't the one getting yelled at. SAE smirked. Yeah, and that made it even funnier. Naruto groaned, shoving his phone back into his pocket. Well, at least that's over with. SAE stretched his arms above his head. Yeah. Now, all you have to do is not fight Loki if we meet him again. Naruto grinned. Oh, I'm definitely fighting him. Just on the pitch. SAE sighed. Of course you are. The training grounds were filled with the sound of sharp, controlled movements, boots grinding against the grass, crisp passes zipping across the field, and the occasional sharp whistle from the coaches. Japan's preparation for Costa Rica had begun, and despite the obvious difference in quality between the two teams, there was still a very real danger of Japan failing to secure a win. If Naruto and SAE didn't play well, this game could be a disaster. Naruto moved through the drills with complete focus, his emperor's eye tracking every movement, predicting every small shift in the defensive line, every slight gap in space. Every time he touched the ball, it felt effortless, his body moving purely on instinct. SAE, training nearby, wasn't speaking much, but Naruto could feel his presence. The way they moved together was getting sharper, more refined. At one point, during a small-sided scrimmage, Naruto ghosted behind a defender just as SAE lobbed a pass over the top. Naruto didn't hesitate, one soft touch to kill the ball, one quick flick to send the keeper the wrong way, and then he slotted it into the net like it was nothing. The coaching staff watched in silence. Even if they didn't like Naruto's personality, they couldn't deny his ability. After a few more minutes, the head coach finally spoke up, voice firm but not harsh. Uzumaki. Ito, sure. You're both starting against Costa Rica. A few of the senior players exchanged glances, but no one argued. They knew it was the right decision. Still, the coach narrowed his eyes slightly, focusing on Naruto. I don't agree with how you conduct yourself off the pitch. Naruto tilted his head slightly, not breaking eye contact. That's fine, he said smoothly. I don't care what you think about me. I only care about winning. The cold honesty in his voice made some of the staff shift uncomfortably. The head coach sighed heavily. Just keep your head down for now. Do your job on the pitch. Naruto smirked. That's the easy part. After training ended, Naruto stayed behind for a bit, taking a slow walk across the field, his body still humming with energy. That's when he spotted Inori standing near the edge of the pitch, doing her usual reporting. She was scribbling something into her notebook, her sleek black blazer unbuttoned, revealing a simple white top underneath. Her long pink hair cascaded down her back, the training lights giving it an almost rosy glow. Naruto smirked, walking up to her with easy confidence. How's it going, reporter? Inori glanced up, arching an eyebrow. I'm working, Naruto. Naruto grinned. That's not an answer. She sighed, shaking her head. I'm good. Naruto tilted his head. Is that because we're dating now? Inori's pen froze mid-sentence. She blinked, then slowly turned to face him, lips pressing together as if trying to fight back a reaction. No. Naruto smirked wider. Maybe? Inori exhaled, looking away. Shut up. Naruto chuckled, crossing his arms. Everything feels good right now, though. Like I can take on the world. Inori arched an eyebrow, her voice teasing. Well, make sure you at least beat Costa Rica first before you start feeling invincible. Naruto rolled his eyes. Who do you think I am? Of course we're gonna win. Inori smirked, tucking her notebook under her arm. Good. For a moment, they just stood there, the stadium empty except for a few lingering players and staff. Naruto had never felt this steady before. Everything was falling into place. Now all he had to do was win. The conference room inside the team hotel was filled with Japan's players and coaching staff. The Costa Rica match was tomorrow, and though the opponent was not on the same level as Spain or Germany, Japan couldn't afford to underestimate them. Naruto sat near the back, arms crossed, listening intently as the head coach paced in front of the tactical board. The room felt different now compared to before the Spain match. Back then, most of the team had barely acknowledged Naruto and SAE. Now, Every single player was watching them. Respect had been earned. The coach tapped his marker against the board, where a diagram of Costa Rica's typical formation was displayed. Costa Rica runs a defensive-heavy system, he began. They play with 5 at the back, a compact midfield, and rely on counterattacks. The board showed a 5-4-1 setup, with their only forward playing deep. Naruto exhaled, tapping his fingers against his arm. Defensive teams were annoying. SAE, sitting beside him, let out a quiet sigh. So they're just gonna park the bus. The coach nodded. Exactly. A different assistant coach spoke up. Costa Rica doesn't have the individual quality that Spain or Germany has, but their structure is strong. They defend deep, clog the passing lanes, and force mistakes. The main coach pointed toward Naruto and SAE. That's where you two come in. Naruto's eyes sharpened slightly. SAE rested his chin on his hand, glancing at the board with mild interest. So what's the plan? The coach circled Costa Rica's center-backs and defensive midfielders. They rely on numbers, not individual ability. If we force them to open up, they'll crumble. Naruto smirked. Meaning? The coach tapped a spot on the board. Quick rotations. Fast passing. The more we move the ball, the harder it'll be for them to stay compact. SAE's eyes glinted. So we play like Spain. The coach nodded. Yes. But faster. The room murmured at that. Spain's tiki-taka style was famous, but it relied on precision. Japan's team didn't have the technical ability of Spain's midfield, but they had Naruto and SAE. The coach moved on to how they would break down Costa Rica's defense. Naruto, you'll be our focal point. Naruto raised an eyebrow, leaning forward. Explain. The assistant coach answered. We won't just have you up front. You'll drop deeper to pull their defenders out. SAE scoffed, crossing his arms. A false 9 setup? The head coach nodded. Yes. If Naruto drifts, their center-backs will have to decide whether to follow him or stay back. That hesitation creates gaps. Naruto grinned. So I move, pull the defenders, and then? The coach pointed to SAE. Then SAE exploits the space behind them. SAE hummed thoughtfully. Not bad. The coach continued. If they don't bite, then Naruto can just turn and shoot from distance. Naruto tapped his fingers against his knee, his mind already running through the possibilities. If Costa Rica stayed compact, they'd make it hard for him to get clean looks on goal. But if he moved unpredictably, they'd hesitate. And hesitation was death in football. He smirked. I like it. The head coach clapped his hands once. We cannot afford to get complacent. He looked at each player one by one, making sure they understood. A loss means elimination. Naruto's fingers twitched. SAE exhaled sharply. The room fell silent. Then, the coach's voice lowered. Make no mistake. If we lose, everything we've worked for ends here. The words carried weight. Naruto and SAE had made Japan believe again. But none of that would matter if they didn't win tomorrow. Naruto slowly leaned back, his emperor's eye glowing faintly. We're not losing. SAE smirked slightly, nodding. Of course we're not. The morning of the match had arrived. The Japan national team hotel was buzzing with energy, but inside the dining hall, things were quieter. Naruto and SAE sat at a corner table, away from the noise, eating their pre-game meal. The rest of the team had scattered around, some eating together, some keeping to themselves, all of them mentally preparing for what was coming. Today, they had to win. As Naruto forked a piece of his omelette into his mouth, his phone screen glowed brightly, showing the latest media headlines. LSPN football, from outcast to Japan's savior, the rise of Naruto Uzumaki. ENG Sport, the new generation of football, is Japan's future here? Marca Spain, is Uzumaki the real deal? Spain's nightmare, the world's next star? Kai Sports, Naruto Uzumaki vs Julian Loki, a rivalry for generations to come. Kicker Germany, the Emperor vs. the God Chosen, Michael Kaiser speaks. Naruto clicked on the last one, raising an eyebrow. SAE, across the table, exhaled. Kaiser's talking already? Naruto scanned the article quickly, his eye narrowing slightly. Michael Kaiser, Naruto Uzumaki? He's entertaining, I'll give him that. But one good game doesn't make you the best. Let's see what happens when the world isn't cheering for him. Let's see if he's still shining when the lights get brighter. That's when the real greats show themselves. Naruto grinned. That arrogant prick, he muttered, scrolling down. The article continued, quoting football analysts discussing Naruto's future. Uzumaki's performance against Spain was legendary, but let's not forget, Spain underestimated Japan. Costa Rica will be different. They'll sit deep, play ugly, and frustrate him. If he struggles, this media hype could collapse just as fast as it built up. Naruto leaned back, smirking. So now people think it was a fluke? SAE, stirring his coffee, barely looked up. That's how it is. One game, you're a god. The next, you're just hype. Naruto tilted his head, tossing a grape into his mouth. I guess I'll just have to shut them up, huh? SAE's lips curled slightly. Obviously. From across the dining hall, Naruto could see some of his teammates watching him and SAE. The players were glued to their phones, reading every tweet, every news article, every piece of speculation about today's match. Some looked nervous. Some looked determined. Naruto clicked on his Twitter feed. Trending topics in Japan. Hashtag Japan vs Costa Rica. Hashtag Uzumaki time. Hashtag Emperor vs God Chosen. Hashtag Naruto as a duo. Millions of eyes were watching. Naruto chewed his toast slowly, feeling a familiar fire burning in his chest. The whole world was waiting for him to prove himself again. He didn't mind. He loved this feeling. SAE set his coffee down, finally looking at Naruto directly. You ready? Naruto raised an eyebrow. Do you even have to ask? SAE exhaled, leaning forward slightly. It's different now. Against Spain, you had nothing to lose. Today? If we screw this up, we're out. Naruto didn't react immediately. Then, his lips curled into a smirk. You worried about me, SAE? SAE scoffed. No, I'm worried about the team. You and I will be fine. Naruto chuckled, shaking his head. Well, if that's the case, then there's nothing to worry about. We're gonna win. SAE studied him for a moment, then let out a small chuckle. You really believe that, huh? Naruto tilted his head, grinning. Do you? SAE exhaled, looking away for a second. Then, his smirk returned. Yeah. After breakfast, the team gathered in the lobby, waiting for the bus to take them to the stadium. The mood was intense. Some players had their headphones in, blocking out the world. Others were stretching, bouncing lightly on their feet, keeping their bodies loose. Naruto stood near the entrance, checking his phone one last time. A message popped up. Inori, game day, Emperor. Make it count. Naruto smirked, quickly typing back. Naruto, you already know I will. He locked his phone, rolling his shoulders. SAE stood next to him, arms crossed, watching as the team manager called for them to board the bus. Naruto let out a breath, staring out at the bright sky. The time for talking was over. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 5. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author SpellRGN on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.